Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a video and podcast show that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Today, it is my privilege and honor to have not just a very, very successful professional, but a very dear friend and my predecessor, who was the chairman for South Asia for YPO Gold. Ishwar Subramanian, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh. Always a pleasure to chat with you.
Always. Ishwar is a chartered accountant. He was the CEO of Akzo Nobel, and he is quite an accomplished entrepreneur. So Ishwar, tell me a little bit about your early life.
Early life, I went into commerce, and that was, it was actually one of the, what I call a stroke of genius of my father, where I was doing science in class 10, and he pulled me out and put me in commerce in class 9. Which is pretty retrograde step in those days for two reasons. One is you're dropping a year and then you're going into commerce, right? But that struck a chord, and from a reasonably average student in science, I excelled in commerce, and it was like, it was my calling. So, higher secondary, got a rank, and then went to Sri Ram College of Commerce, University of Delhi. My schooling was largely in Orissa, so, it's something I'm still very proud of. I read, write, and speak Oriya even now. And so then, went into Sri Ram and, got a rank in college and in university. Then quickly enrolled to be a chartered accountant. In those days, there was not too many options in our generation.
True.
And I qualified very young. I was 22 when I qualified. And then, moved to Bombay because, everybody said Bombay is where, if you're a chartered accountant, that's where you should go. So went there.
And what stage did you join Akzo?
Well, Akzo was much later because, initial 5-6 years of my professional career were with accounting and audit firms. I used to be with E&Y, and then I was with Arthur Andersen. And only then did I come into, actually my first corporate job was as CFO of 3M in India, where we did the public issue, which, was a record subscription at that time. And the share, 10 rupee share opened at 80 rupees, So those were the days. And then after 5 years with them, I moved to Akzo in 1994.
Okay. Yeah. And when you moved to Akzo, it was in finance or general management?
No, I came in as finance director. The management team had 3 expats and me. There was the managing director, there was the manufacturing director, the sales and marketing director, all 3 expats. And I was the lone Indian. With the clear mandate when I was recruited that, I'll be the candidate for the job unless I lose it.
Okay.
So I didn't lose it.
Okay. And so how was your transition? I see a lot of CFOs transitioning to CEOs. What was your experience in this transition?
It's interesting that you say that, and I agree with you. What really happens is, it's the accounting profession is a fact-finding and detail-oriented profession. So, you want to make, what happens in the CFO's job is he will never make a decision unless it's almost got 100% of the facts.
Okay.
We have all seen that. We have had CFOs working for us.
Right.
And I think that's right because that is their training and that's what's expected of them. Now, you and me know, having been CEO, that the biggest transition is the ability to make decisions with incomplete facts, because as a CEO, you will never have 100%. If you look for 100%, the moment has passed. You don't have to make a decision. Somebody else has made it for you, right?
Yeah.
So I think, luckily for me, as I had a very bright managing director in Akzo, who was Oxford, Harvard. And he featured in people I owe my thanks in life to. That, he was one of the guys who told me that, you are a lousy finance director, but you are damn good CEO material.
Okay.
Okay, but I was not a detailed person in spite of being an accounting background person. And I knew that early in my life. So what I used to do is I used to hire, a deputy who was extremely good with, these kind of stuff. Because these guys are dime a dozen.
Yep.
The problem is only getting people who are different, right? The second part of it, as you know, is the CA education. When you understand a lot about risk, you can have 2 reactions to it. One is you develop a serious sense of paranoia, where you say, boss, everything is risky, and that is one thing. Second thing is you understand risk and hence you know how to manage risk. And I came from the second category where, I knew what was my downsides, how to cover them, and still whether it was worth going for. So, that kind of sums it up. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And then, after having spent all your life in the corporate world or as an employee, you decided to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Tell me about this journey and why did you take this plunge?
So, while I was an employee, what was interesting was in way back in 85, when I married and we moved to Bangalore, I had the privilege of setting up the E&Y office as a loan man. I was me and my assistant, and that was the office working out of my house. That's how E&Y started in Bangalore.
So you started work from home then, huh?
Yeah. I started work from home in 1985. Yeah, exactly. And then in Arthur Andersen, it was the same thing. I was selected to do the Bangalore office, again a startup. Then when I joined as CFO of 3M, we were hardly some 20 employees. Again, it was a startup. In Akzo Nobel, I was employee number 1. So again, it was a startup. So one of the things is, though I have worked for large companies, I have been used to operating in an area of freedom and liberty. And, not a lot of processes and bureaucracy, which are necessary when the company becomes large, because I fully agree that is the transition, which I did successfully in Akzo Nobel. But I must say that I really enjoyed doing things when, you have got more liberty and freedom to operate, think outside the box, experiment a few things.
Correct.
And I realized that is what I enjoyed. So towards the last few years of my stay in Akzo Nobel, I started realizing that all I was doing is pushing paper, and, just, kind of, what would I say, managing meetings, managing the head office, and that kind of stuff, and not real stuff.
Yeah.
I was already distant from the customer. And, even with the employees, what happened is, when you're so long in the company and you've been CEO for 11 years, everybody who works for you, before he opens his mouth, what he's going to say.
Correct.
And what his position is on some matter.
Correct.
So it was getting boring. And as it happened that, somehow when I became CEO before 40, I always used to tell my wife that, by 50, I want to get out of this. We married young, we had children young. So I said, by 50, I have to get out of this and do something else. Now, when, this is the other thing about that, you must have seen that video, The Secret. When you really want something, the world conspires to give it to you.
Correct.
And as luck would have it for me, I had a boss change, in November of 2009. And, a new guy. And then by which time I was also, in my journey very close to my 50th. And it all worked out very well. The new guy came in and I could negotiate a good settlement for myself. And which I did and moved on, not knowing what I'm going to do next.
Okay.
But what I knew was I don't want to do what I'm doing.
Wonderful.
And I'm one of those believers, and I've told my son subsequently that as long as you're sitting somewhere, in a reasonably comfortable place, it's very difficult to think of something new. So you have to cut the umbilical cords and move. And even if you don't know where you're going, you will find a direction when you get there.
Terrific.
Yeah.
So let's
That's exactly what happened.
Correct. Fantastic. So let's move to your journey as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
My first question to you is, or maybe before I come to those questions, tell me about the startups that you've done.
The first startup which we were involved in when I was in corporate life was invested with a YPO in the telecom space on SMSs and all that, which were hot things in 2004. And this guy was also ahead of his time. And a few of us, invested in this thing. But apart from making a financial investment, I was closely involved with him. I was on his advisory board and I used to spend time with him. And I quite liked that. That was my first introduction to startups where I understood what's happening. Then soon thereafter, there was another friend of mine who set up a wealth advisory business after leaving Deutsche Bank. And my wife and me got involved as shareholders. And then she got involved with him as a partner and they tried to run that. And again, that business also was a little ahead of its time. Wealth advisory came into India successfully after 2008. But, I'm talking of circa 2003 and 4. So those were the first two startups we did during the time when I was in corporate life. Then thereafter, towards the fag end of my corporate life, my couple of forum buddies decided that we will set up a private equity fund, And some of the players in that, they all, are friends, right? And then, one of them resigned his corporate job and took an active plunge. And, we were busy fundraising at the same time when I had this dilemma of leaving the company, which, worked out quite well. But what didn't work out was because of the 2009, that's the financial down. We were not successful in raising the quantity of money we thought we could. And the fund was not viable for, 3 full-time people. I continued on the investment committee, but I said, leave and I will be there for you guys. But I will do something else. So, I supplement my life and do something because I also got the time.
Sure.
And that's the time when I said, okay, let me do a few turnarounds. I got interested in turnarounds because I thought, there's some fun in that. Not that I've done it, but that's probably as close to a startup as you can get in the organized world.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, because you are in deep shit. You have to do things differently. What you're doing is not working. So I got involved with two of those turnarounds, which I successfully completed in actually 12 months. We turned around both the companies. I said, turn around. We stopped making losses to start with, and by year 3, both were making a decent EBIT. Right. One of them I continue with them till today because though he's reasonably successful, the entrepreneur doesn't let me go, and we still stay engaged, and I still work with him one day a month. Very different roles now. We have been acquiring companies, very different, but it's fun. So that was my consulting business, which still continues. I mentor about 3 CEOs at any point of time, all family businesses, about 1,000 crores of business, and I work with them, and they are the ones who are going to take over the family business. So I work with them to look at what they should be focusing on. And so that kind of stuff, that was happening. That was the other startup. That was my consulting. Then the last one was, I plunged full time into a company called M Supply, which you know about. We have talked about, Ashutosh. That was with a partner, and that was in the B2B building material space, because we felt that, that's totally unorganized. Plus, it was the only large vertical, so to speak, which had not been conquered by e-commerce when we got interested in it in 2015, right? We were one of the early guys, we worked well, and we raised, in the first 6 months, we had put in about $500,000 each to start the business between us. But we got a VC who came in with a Series A check of 6 million, and then, topped it up with another 4. But what happened was, just at the right time when we were going for our larger term funding raise, we were hit by demonetization, which, is a big thing for that industry. Per se, because construction material works on a lot of cash. And from a point where we were running, nearly 40, 50, about nearly $10 million in GMV per month, we plummeted to 1 and 2 thereafter for the next 3 months. And that was the heart of our fundraising.
Right.
So our fundraising was struggling and all that. So that, that's a different story. But finally, what happened was that because we couldn't raise enough soon enough, I exited to allow the cap table to get reformatted for the new guy. And then, of course, stroke of luck, ILFS came in as an investor after I left. And then the business had to close down subsequently because of what happened in ILFS. So it's a tragic end. My partner, Perchap, worked 3 hard years and got nothing much. So, but that was a fantastic experience. At one point, we had 400 employees and we were working out of 13 cities.
Amazing.
So that was a phenomenal, the growth thing I did. So that was probably the last thing. Then subsequently, the assignment I did till 2 months back, I was involved with Ministry of Defense. I used to work in BEML, which is a PSU.
I'm going to come to BEML, but I'm going to stay with startups.
Okay.
I have a few questions.
Okay. So that was it. So that is the story so far.
That's an interesting segue into my next few questions on startups. So, you worked with partners and you worked solo. In your opinion, and the reason I'm asking these questions, Ishwar, is because thousands of people will listen to you and my talking. And, your learnings will be valuable to everyone who listens. Is it good to go solo or is it good to have a co-founder?
Depends. There is no straight answer. And I think it's more you have to analyze yourself for it, right? Mm-hmm. So I think you have to analyze yourself. You have to analyze your business, right? Now, and that's at a very macro level. But then if you look at it slightly differently, and you look at it, if you're especially looking for funding, there is merit in having a co-founder because the VCs start worrying what happens if you get under a bus. The get under the bus theory, which we have learned in multinationals all the time, right? So that's another, and I would also say that, the complexity of most businesses is such today that it's not easy for one guy to get a, handle over the full thing.
Correct.
But I said, this is so business specific and individual specific that, but then, you're right. There are other complications when you get a partner, right? Because then, he'll have a different style of thinking and all that. But I think, that is depending on your personality, that's an easier problem to solve than go solo. Because as it is, you're lonely, and then here you're really lonely, because there's nobody on your side. Yeah.
So the next question for startups is that what, in your opinion, are some of the basic mistakes a lot of startup entrepreneurs make?
What is your objective? what I mean, if I think, the thing is, many people lose the objective in the startup. Actually, you should be finding and defining the problem you're trying to solve. And somewhere along the line, people forget that. So, when you see so many youngsters coming and making a pitch, like you, I'm an angel, so we keep listening to youngsters coming and making a pitch. And, you always miss the thing. What is the purpose of your business and what are you trying to solve? You're trying to say that, I will scale like this, I will scale like this, this is my technology, this is my use. All that is great. But what is the problem you're trying to solve? And I think, if that is not clear, that is the first challenge. The second is, what is the purpose of your business? Sadly, I find many youngsters coming in, the sole objective of their business is to make money, right? And I do understand the capitalist system. I do understand all of that. But I'm a great believer in the old school where I believe money is a consequence of your actions and cannot be the purpose of your actions.
Correct.
If you do all the other things right, all good valuations have been created by companies who have solved the problem well. It's never the other way around.
Yeah.
But somewhere along the last 5-7 years, because too much capital is chasing, capital itself has become a competitive advantage. So if you have tied up with somebody with oodles of money, you can bulldoze your way, burning good capital to create businesses when you can do it in half the price.
I agree.
So these are the things which I'm seeing very carefully from where I sit. Yeah.
Well said. So now let's move to BEML. I mean, that was a very, very fascinating move that you made to a government body, a public sector undertaking. Why did you do it and what was your experience?
See, the why part of it was a combination of two things. The first is that I'm one of those who, has got this huge weakness for new experiences.
Correct.
For me, you give me a new experience and you get me. I'm still very curious. I'm Aquarian by birth. So I'm a very curious individual. So the two things I pursue rapidly are new experiences and new friendships. I like to make new friendships. I've not hesitated at my age to make new friendships. I love new people, chatting with them. And so the same thing with business. And that's really what happened. That, I got contacted by them and then they said, we are looking for this thing. Would you be keen? And I said, okay, let's see what it is. And, it was a fairly good portfolio, which they said they could seek my advice on, commercial and strategy, right? And I said, okay, this sounds good. And so the two things that the consequences of that were, so that's why I went in. Now, what did I find? What I found is, first is I had my own misgivings and my own predetermined thoughts about government and PSU, right? That, nothing positive, I must say, But when I went in there, I was pleasantly surprised that, it's not like that. There are good people there who mean well, who have an intention that the company should do well. All of that, like in private sector, is there. Now, of course, they have a few processes and policies which they have to adhere to more strictly. The opportunity for the leader to overrule those policies is limited compared to what you and me have enjoyed. But then if you work for a very large company, honestly, there's no difference between working for a very large company and a PSU. Really it's the same, right? So I enjoyed that journey because I was pleasantly surprised and I met some very good people. And I had the opportunity to make a difference because, the CMD was very open-minded. And so hence he led the board in a very positive manner. So, they were genuinely interested in changing. So I really had a great time those 2.5 years, they treated me with a lot of respect. Honestly, it was embarrassing sometimes, the CMD would stand up if I come into his room, and say, sir, please sit down. Things which I never expected. And not that I wanted it, but that kind of defines the culture that if you know something, they respect you. So thoroughly enjoyable 30 months.
Really wonderful. So, Ishwar, now I have time for a few personal questions.
Right, sir.
My first question is that over such a successful career, are there any people who've had an influence on your life? And if yes, what have you learned from them?
A very difficult question because honestly, there are so many. But what I will do for simplification,
give me 2 or 3 maximum.
Yeah. No, I'm not talking names. I'm putting them in 2-3 buckets for ease. Because I'll tell you why. One is family. Okay. And when I say family, because family, they do it because they are family, right? Blood is thicker than water. So in that category, my father clearly fits in. And my father's elder brother, with whom I stayed with when I was in college. Those two gentlemen were principled, with great value systems, terrific sense of integrity and honesty. And those were priceless things to get at that young age, right? Then you move to the second bucket is your office colleagues and teachers. Now, they are interested in you because financially they are vested in you because, you have a common goal. And in that lot, also I have been lucky. I had two very good teachers in school whom I remember very distinctly. College, of course, there were great teachers in Sriram, but, college is different. You don't get a one-on-one. And then when I went into corporate life, there were three guys who I remember distinctly. One of them is Mr. Kashi Memani, who was the country managing partner for E&Y, who set up the Bangalore office with me. A great guy, gave me full leeway to run things how I wanted. Followed up by a managing director in 3M. I used to work with a guy called Will Scrivens. Again, a guy, extremely good with people and how to motivate and how to lead teams. Those are not things I knew when I was 29, right? So I used to watch him. There was a tremendous amount to learn from him, how he was a true leader. He stood by you when you were down. Correct. And always there. The third guy, of course, I told you was this Oxford, Harvard guy, Bill Hadman in Akzo. Completely opposite of the 3M guy. Terrific strategic thinking. Amazing. Right? So, I was just so lucky that I got this whole thing on a platter. This was the best MBA somebody could earn, right? At work. And they were paying me for it. So that was great. So then the third bucket is people like you and my other friends who have also influenced my life in a number of ways without having any reason to do so. In that category, there are so many, but one I want to name particularly is my dear friend Suresh Talwar. He was a partner at Crawford Bailey. He has been a mentor and friend of mine for 30 years. When we did the public issue, we started a journey together. And so, so these people have made a difference, for no reason. They had no reason to do it, right? Yeah. And all our YPO friends, I could name so many, and yeah.
I'm sure.
But I'm not doing it because I'll piss off a few others.
So my next question to you is that if you were a role model to millions of children who closely followed your life choices, what is the one thing you would change in yourself?
I think, I was very brash till I was about 40. And I had this absolute hubris, if you can describe, I achieved so much, and when you're young, you think you can walk on water. You think, life is a piece of cake. In spite of getting good mentors, mind you. So I just hate to think what would have happened if I didn't have these mentors.
Correct.
So that is probably, I must have made a lot of unpleasant relationships at that time by my brashness, which I think was completely unnecessary. And today it's just the reverse. I have, absolutely none of those things in my character at all today. Nobody can piss me off. Nobody can hurt me. And I'm very indulgent. I tolerate everybody, tolerate every single view. Even if I disagree completely, it will not be that I lose my cool. I will just say that, I disagree with you, but that's okay. You're entitled to your view, I'm entitled to mine. But I wish I had that, because I don't think I lost something seriously, or I don't know what I lost, but I don't think it was a good trend to have. But I guess age is one of those things which gives you that. Yeah.
Age is a big mellower of all people.
Yes. So I would recommend that, even successful youngsters, just keep an eye on it. You can very easily go off the thing on that. Yeah.
So Ishwar, my last question to you, and this relates to the pandemic. If given the pandemic and all the changes, how are you rethinking your life in the new world order?
Yes, but there are two things to it. One is the pandemic hasn't affected my life in a very serious manner, except that I'm not able to travel. Honestly, I'm able to do everything else that I was doing. We live in a place where I can work out, walk, cycle, play golf. Everything is happening, right? Meeting friends, drinking, everything is happening. But having said that, I can see and sense what's happening around me. And, like I keep telling my wife, I'm very happy to be my age when this is happening and not 40, paying EMIs and school fees, because the amount of uncertainty there, and those people, my heart reaches out to them. I don't know what. But having said that, so now how am I going to lead my life differently? I think, I have now realized that I don't need many things which I thought I need, right? So that is the first thing, right? Second thing, many of the things that gave me great joy are stopping to give me great joy. I used to love going to a large party, 20 people, drinking with a few bunch of, on the bar, all that. Now I enjoy intimate relationships, 2-3 people sitting with me, having a drink, talking about stuff, understanding each other. So, so from a social point of view, that's how my life has changed. And on the other thing, I believe that, thank God I have maintained my health because I do believe that if you're not healthy in this scenario, you're more vulnerable. So, I'm so happy that I do my exercises and live my life reasonably well. Personally, that's where I am, and that's the changes I see, But I do miss the opportunity to go to America to see the boys, like you.
Absolutely.
It's a big downer. And, more so when I tell them things are opening up, I'm going to come, and they're looking at me and saying, "Are you mad? Dad, what's wrong with you?"
I agree with you. So, Ishwar, thank you very much. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you.
Yeah.
And I wish you lots of success in whatever you do.
No, sir. Wish me happiness. Success is another matter altogether.
Okay. Success with happiness.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
And good health, of course.
Oh, yes. Yes. Without that, we can't enjoy anything else. Yeah.
Thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.